Guys, good Monday morning. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network on a glorious day in February 2022, the last day in February, to be exact. A lot we're going to cover on today's program, and as always, if you'd like to engage, leave your thoughts, your comments, your ideas, your perspective on any of the social media channels you're watching upon, and we will relay them live on air. The Monday edition of Real Talk is presented by Closure Title and Settlement Company, Closure Title and Settlement Company, Ally Property Management, and powered by Sigora Solar. Suzanne Reel of Ally Property Management is personally managing one of my rental properties. She's absolutely fantastic, Ally Property Management. Now, folks, we'll go to the two-shot, and one thing you'll notice right away is this is not Keith Smith. This is Nikki Chambless. How are you,
Maybe
Nikki?
Maybe I could be. I'll work on my accent a little bit.
You're way prettier than Keith Smith.
Don't tell Keith that.
I think he's watching right now.
Oh, no. Keith, I think you're very pretty. It's okay.
So if you got some perspective and some props you'd like to relay to Nikki, put them in the feed. Keith in the Caribbean for an extended period of time, and Nikki Chambless is going to fill in on Mondays on the Monday Market Monitor. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, tell me a little bit more about that property that Suzanne is managing. I'd love to hear. What type of property you got?
Absolutely. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo in the Villas at Southern Ridge.
Nice.
Immediately, we had her do a property analysis.
Yeah.
We found the rent was right around $1,850 a month, $1,850 a month. And she, because the market is so hot, has found tenants before she could show the space. Tomorrow or Wednesday, Suzanne Reel is going to take a handful of people and walk them through the Villas at Southern Ridge, which I think may be the entry point in that Mountain View, Southside Charlottesville little ecosystem. What do you think?
I think it's great. And okay, so I have to do a little quick shout out to Suzanne. Congratulations on your beautiful new grandbaby.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, that's wonderful. But then, okay, so have you had this property for long?
Oh yeah, I've had this property for.
So you've been managing this one yourself.
Oh yeah, I've been managing this property for 9 years.
Oh wow. That's awesome.
And then decided, as you know, we have 24 tenants. And I'm like, you know what, Suzanne, you were incredible on Real Talk and the Monday Market Monitor. Yes. Literally had a chance to get to know her. She was sitting right here next to me, and she was so incredible. I'm like, here's a proof of performance. Here's one. If this goes well, more to come.
That's amazing. So let me ask on that. Can I ask very specific,
Please.
Personal? Is that property paid off? You want. Is that property paid off?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, the property's paid off, yes.
It's basically, so that's amazing. So you've had this for 9 years. It's paid off.
I've had it for, let's see, 17 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, but you said you've been managing it for the last, 9. What happened before then?
I lived there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's perfect. So that was a smallish space for you. Was this family life?
Yeah, it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was 1,400 square feet and just me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's actually a great pad for
it was awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay, so did you end up getting roommates or anything?
I did. I talk about this on the show all the time.
Yeah.
So when I launched this business in 2008, I took my life savings. So this business, interestingly, is 14 years old in May. And in 2008,
awesome.
I launched it and took my life savings, and put it into the business. And didn't have many clients for the first 6 months. And then literally was on the brink of losing this condo. And instead, before losing it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to figure out something on the fly. Was not able to afford the mortgage. Invited my two inner circle friends, 2 best friends, 2 people I trust, and said, you know what, guys, your leases are coming up. Why don't you rent one of these bedrooms? There was 3 total. I was in the primary suite, and then rent these other bedrooms. I'll rent it to you for below market. Nice. You guys are going to save money on a lease, and then I'll offer you flexibility where it's not a 1-year lease, but you can pay as you go and stay as you want, and you can also get it at a price point that's lower than market value, and they're like, let's do it. So those two friends rented these 2 rooms from me, and allowed me to afford the mortgage.
That's amazing.
And grow the business.
That's great.
If I hadn't have rented those 2 rooms, I would not have been able to afford the mortgage on that condo.
That's perfect.
Literally,
that's
true story.
the ideal situation for an example of house hacking and how that's totally doable. And you weren't trying to make bank. You were just trying to make your mortgage.
I was trying to make the mortgage.
Right?
Yeah.
And now you would probably never rent something for under market because of where you are. But when you started out, you were ready to wheel and deal.
Absolutely. And I stayed there. They stayed in those bedrooms for a year and change. Then the business started taking off, and then parlayed the business into a purchase in Redfields. Lived in Redfields from December 2013 to March 2020. Bought in eastern Albemarle County, March 2020, right before COVID hit.
Yep.
And then kept managing the condo while living in Redfields. It was way easier to manage while living in Redfields because it was right around the corner.
There.
It was right there. But then moving on the other side of the county, from the south side to the eastern side, it started getting a little bit more complicated. And then Suzanne Reel of Ally Property Management, she kept coming on this show, and I'm like, this woman's amazing.
She really is.
So I'm like, let's give her a chance.
And it's so nice having somebody you can just go to that manages that stuff for you. Because I bought my very first investment property. It's been now over a year, which I'm very excited about. Just barely over a year. What was it? The 24th, 25th something is when I closed last year. So yay, happy house anniversary to me.
Congratulations.
Which should be celebrated. When you have a house anniversary, whether it's your personal home that you live in or an investment, that's a celebratory moment.
Absolutely.
So I'm all about finding reasons to celebrate or party.
Where are you seeing some good investment for rental property around these parts? Where are you hearing?
I think the challenge is sometimes people think that they need to have a certain return on investment. And I'm all for a high return on investment. But when somebody's just trying to get started, if this is a long game that you're playing, just get a house. Buy a house, rent it out. Rents are much higher than mortgages. And have been in our area for a long time, but right now those rents are just skyrocketing, right?
Yeah. So you could get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a den at the villas for probably $200,000, maybe $210,000. I would imagine the mortgage 30-year fixed, and one of the brokers that's watching the program right now can help with this. 30-year fixed on a 210 purchase price is probably in the vicinity of like $1,200, $1,300, depending on credit. Monthly dues on that are in the neighborhood of, say, $175 HOA dues. So let's, for the sake of math, call it $1,325 on a 30-year fixed. $175 on an HOA, that takes you up to $1,500 a month. The unit is running for $1,850 all day, every day.
Exactly.
And it's going up 5% every year.
Yep.
So on day one, if you can do it, on day one, you are cash flow positive a few $100.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, you got to bank that money.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You got to put a slush fund in there in case the HVAC breaks.
Because it will.
It will break.
You got to plan for
appliances
that.
break.
It happens.
But day one, you're cash flow positive.
Yes, you are. Absolutely. And that's not factoring it. Was that factoring in the down payment? I don't think so.
So it depends. So if someone, and you know this as well as I do, if you're going to buy it as an investment property and not as a primary residence, the down payment's going to be substantially higher. If it's a primary residence, you don't need 20% down.
Which is a great way to get into investing, is buy that primary residence and then live in it a year or two and then rent it out. I mean, upgrade, do whatever. House hack like you did.
I literally was having this conversation on Thursday with a friend of mine. She is 25. I hope she's watching. If you're watching, let us know. She's 25 years old. She recently just purchased into a business. I'm not going to say which one.
Okay.
But she bought into a business. Now she's looking to purchase a home.
Nice.
I mentioned with her, to her, that she should consider purchasing one of the condos that were available, Villas at Southern Ridge, Eagles Landing, something of that plan.
Yeah.
Those condos are going to be somewhere between 185K to 210K. She could put 5% down. So 5% down, let's just call it 200 for the sake of easy math.
Yep, sounds
That's 10K.
good. Yep.
She has the 10K. Then she has 2 additional bedrooms, and she should take the exact plan of attack that I did, where she rent those 2 additional bedrooms to friends.
Absolutely.
And I honestly think she's going to do that.
That's amazing. Well, that's perfect.
I really do think she's
I
going to do
feel like
that.
so many times, and people that I've worked with directly, they want to get this perfect home or even close to perfect. And while that's wonderful, when you're in a market that's competitive and as a buyer, you're getting a little wore out and there's just not much out there, think a little longer term and go with something that's, a great investment property in the future and a good place to live now.
I had this conversation with Michael Guthrie some years ago. And Michael, if you're watching, let us know. In fact, I'll tag you on the feed. And we talked about the first home you buy. Make sure, especially if you're younger and your experience level, make sure it's a home that if the you-know-what hits the fan, you can rent it for everything that'll cover the mortgage, for a rate that'll cover the mortgage. And there are few properties in Charlottesville City and Albemarle County that are 210 and below. Where can you find 210 and below?
I mean, look, we were talking about condos, and that's really kind of what you're looking at.
Is there anything else?
Not really.
Right?
That's kind of what you're looking at.
So what are we looking at? We're looking at Eagles Landing. Mm-hmm. We're looking at Villas of Southern Ridge, Turtle Creek.
Yep, that's right.
Hessian Hills.
Is there anything else?
Those developments right there. You can go in there with 10% down, and then you could take the additional rooms that are in your space and rent them out to friends, and it will cover your monthly mortgage payment and your HOA dues, and you will come out cash flow positive.
Yes.
And that's if it's your primary residence. If it's an investment property, that's a completely different story because the calculus is a little bit different because you're going to have to put a much larger down payment down.
Yeah. Yeah. And in most cases, if you're doing traditional financing for that, it's usually going to be 15% or more, right?
Yeah.
And if you go and you follow investing advice, they're going to recommend 20%. But the reality is I put 15 down on mine, and I'm happy as can be with that setup.
Now, was your seller fi? Was yours a seller finance deal?
Nope. I went with a traditional mortgage.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So walk us through the mechanics of that investment property.
Well, so at that point, not only was I buying an investment property, I was also self-employed. So I was playing that game as well. And if you're a self-employed person, generally speaking, you want to take as many tax write-offs as you can.
Absolutely.
Right? And in my case, I was new enough in my business that I had a year where I basically figured out what the math was to make what I needed to do, and I only took so many tax write-offs, which is a little painful, right? I had to pay the IRS more than I wanted to, but it got me my investment property. So every penny of that was worth it, and so I did. Now, for me, I bought this, when did I go under contract? It was at the end of 2019? No, 2020. It was at the end of 2020, and I was able to call the realtor, right? It was starting to heat up. The competition was big, but this was a bank loan property. So it was foreclosure, right? And if anybody has seen my video, I gave a whole tour of it. I just didn't say it was mine. It was just a normal real estate business experience. So I was able to go in there. I did a pre-home inspection, which was not normal at the time because I knew what I needed to do to make this happen. My offer was not the highest, but I got accepted because I was one of those first people to say, hey, you know what? No home inspection contingency. I'm going to make this as easy as possible. And I won the bid. I also had a really good rapport with that realtor. And as soon as that house hit the market, he told me about it because he knows that I'm out there working the business and doing the things. When he first told me about it, though, the bank had overpriced it. It sat there. So then they underpriced it, got a little bit of competition, and thankfully I won.
So let's do this. This question's coming on the feed, and
Okay.
we may have Quentin Beckham in the house here in a matter of moments on the program with the fresh cut, looking rather sharp over here. Judah Wickhauer is getting ready the shot for you here, QB. And Quentin, this is something you can get your brain going too as well. Where can you find something 250 or below in this market? Nice shoes, Quentin. 250 or below in this market to do this exact idea.
Well, so I think the question I have to ask about that is, what are you willing to do to that property? Are you willing to do a little TLC and have some elbow grease, right?
That's what you did.
That's exactly what I did. And I was actually truly, I was lucky. That's what it was.
Either that or live in it alongside of having some roommates.
Yes.
One of those two scenarios.
Well, and so here's the thing. If you take that scenario where you live in it, you have the roommates, and you do the house hacking, you're in a much better situation. You don't have the required down payment, right? You also have a lower interest rate. And while even as an investment, it's still cheap money right now, right? There is no question about that. If I can have even cheaper money, that's a better deal for me. So I am truly, while I didn't do it myself because I have kids and life, and I wasn't ready to go the house hacking route, if I had been able to find a duplex, I would have done it in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. 3-shot with Quentin Beckham in the mix. Judy's going to give us the thumbs up here in a matter of moments. He's got a new...
Yay, so happy to have you here.
He's got a new sports jacket as well. So there's... You're looking sharp. That's a new jacket, right?
It's newish, yeah.
Is it terrifying that I know which sports jackets you have? And the fact that you got new shoes.
There's a variety of things about you that make me anxious.
There we go.
But yeah, that's one. It's also because I own so few. It's not like you're having to keep track of a lot.
Well, I think he has
valid
3
point.
very nice sports jackets. Is it 3? I think it is 3.
This would be the 4th.
Oh, this is the 4th.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
This is the 4th.
All Alton Lane?
All except this one.
Oh, what's this one from?
This is from Men's Warehouse.
Oh, Men's Warehouse. Very sharp, very sharp. Neil Williamson watching the program. So this topic is hot here. So we got people watching
awesome.
the show. So we're talking investor property.
We're for it. We like it.
Yeah, everyone's for it. This man has helped quite a few clients find investment property. Neil says this: there are some in the community concerned with investor-owned property, either private investor or hedge fund, but I believe such housing providers are an important part of the affordable rental market. More housing everywhere for everyone. I will add to this. There's a thread that's been circulating around Twitter, Nikki and Quentin, about small landlords, like the mom and pop, the ones that just have a handful of units, being lumped into this like larger category of landlords, and that these tax rate increases are potentially really damaging to their business model, in particular since they passed a lot of the costs onto their tenants. So first, good morning, Quentin.
Good morning.
And then you've come into a lion's den of a topic right here. Where would you like to begin, QB?
I want to start talking about, do landlords, particularly smaller landlords, mom and pop style, actually reduce the housing inventory? And
that's a good topic.
I would tell you, particularly in this market, that answer is no, because they're not stepping into heavy competitions for really well-wanted homes, competing with 8 other buyers in an escalating field. That works against how they need to operate. Mm-hmm. So homes that are being picked up, particularly by smaller local owners, landlords, mom and pop, whatever you want to call it, are generally homes that are not available for purchase to anybody else for a variety of reasons, or unaffordable to those who would get use out of them.
Or they're willing to live in the unit with some buddies with them.
Or they're willing to house hack.
Hack, yeah.
So in this way, they actually do help increase housing availability, because they provide housing at a level of affordability that you won't often get if you're dealing with a larger, sort of corporate landlord base. And even some of the corporate landlord bases, they're building large apartment structures that the individual units are more price friendly than what you might get if you're trying to rent a single family unit all on your own. Also, landlords that are more local tend to be much more agreeable and willing to work stuff out. You were talking about Suzanne earlier, and I know she had a variety of clients.
I met Suzanne through Real Talk. If it was not for Real Talk, I would not be doing business with Suzanne. That is literally straight up the truth. She sat here for 3 shows. I'm like, this woman is freaking amazing.
And as we went through COVID, and she had property she was managing whose tenants were out of work, she helped the owner and the tenants walk through the process of getting grants to cover the loans. And that's something that you will see in smaller local businesses, smaller local landlords, that you may or may not have great success with if you're dealing with a corporate structure that's out of state. So, as Neil Williamson will, I'm sure, agree with me, we need all sorts of housing options and more of all of them, and that includes rentals in a variety of price points. And so I do think these investment properties are good for this. It also tends to put a property in the hands of somebody who's going to not knock it down and put up a 4-story apartment building.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it does sort of maintain some neighborhood continuity. There's pros and cons to that, depending on what specifically we're talking about. But it tends to be that they just want to have a nice house for somebody to live in, to pay a reasonable amount of rent, and pay off that property for them and promote their investment.
That's literally all I want to do. That's literally all she wants to do right there.
Exactly.
This is less about cap rate and shareholders and a behemoth company that has staff that I have to cover and vehicles that break down and literally just about getting from point A to point B to point C.
Well, you know, sometimes it's that person who is buying that investment property as like a future college fund, right? They're in the community
Is that
or
what you're
really
doing?
close by. Well, no, my children are old enough that I'm a little late on that bandwagon.
Okay.
No, this is to build a future for myself and so that my kids don't need to take care of me when I'm older. Because who wants to have to rely on that? I love my children. I hope they're wildly successful. I'm sure they will be. And I don't want them to have to be responsible for me as I get older. So for me, I've never built something in a previous workforce. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time.
Cool.
So I don't have all of that set aside. I'm starting in my 40s to invest in my future.
Well, what do you guys make, both of you guys make of this proposed 10-cent tax rate increase? Have you considered this at all, QB? Because I know you think about a lot of stuff here.
Honestly, I have not dug deeply into it because I just feel like there's been larger issues for me as a broker in our industry.
I want to hear those.
I think the hard part right now for the 10-cent tax increase is a lot of homeowners are seeing $75,000 to $150,000 assessment increases.
12% on average across the city increase.
And so then you add the 10-cent increase on top of that, and it starts to sort of exponentially get out of hand. And I'm mostly worried about folks that are in the middle to the lower end of the market that might be on a tighter budget and what this might do to them in terms of their monthly payments. When I went to the grocery store this weekend, which is an odd occurrence for me, but I went and I shopped because I'm actually going to be home this week. And it was like $135 at Giant for 2 relatively small bags of groceries. And so I get concerned about not the one thing, not the 10-cent price increase. I get concerned about the price increase plus the assessment going up, plus gasoline probably going to be tipping even higher as we move forward, plus the cost of feeding the family of 4 that's probably most at risk, and all of these...
And interest rates going up.
No one thing, just everything together.
Absolutely. Nikki, your thoughts?
Well, it feels like it's just rough timing because of all of those reasons. Everything else is already getting harder. This is another thing, right? And hopefully it's not the tipping point for a thing, assuming it were to get approved, but it could be for a lot of people. And that's rough.
So I was reading, I got sent a link today from Realtor.com about the spring market. The spring market and what to expect with the spring market. Before we dig into that article, your thoughts on spring market, QB and Nikki, and expectations for this community?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of what we've been seeing. And we keep saying that a lot because it's what we're seeing and what we predict to be true, and we have no reason to think other than large worldwide events, right, which are happening. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things, those could impact. Well, we're not there yet, right? But right now, it's low inventory. You're going to be hearing that for the next several years probably because it's low inventory, and that was created years ago. We're not going to be able to fix that in the next 2. It's just not possible.
And I know January's inventory year over year is the lowest inventory since we have been keeping track of real estate numbers in the state of Virginia. You know, it's you've seen it all the time where we're like, oh, record sales month. Oh, now this month's beat last month. And then that has sort of tapered off. And now the thing that we're watching is every record for low inventory getting beat by the month after it. And then the next month it does it again, and then the next month it does it again. Spring is a time where people have to move around in our area because that's the way jobs work. There's choosing day, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on. Contracts come due for residents and fellows and JAG and DIA and INJIC, and people have to shovel. They don't have an option. And so you'll get some more houses on the market, but comparatively, I'll bet you it's not nearly enough for what everybody wants in terms of what they want to buy.
You just got back from a Keller Williams trip in Florida.
That's right, I
And
did.
Yes.
I was excited. I believe you're here tomorrow, right?
I am here tomorrow.
So one of the topics I wanted to cover tomorrow, but perhaps we can touch on it today. This trip is essentially, for lack of a better phrase, kind of like a masterminding, recharging, inspiring, where you can learn from peers from other markets.
It is.
What were some of the trends that were being discussed in this Keller Williams trip? Was it Orlando?
It was Orlando. This one they call Family Reunion. They have it every year around Valentine's Day. And so it has this, oh, we love you sort of theme to it. And one of the speeches that Gary Keller gives every year that I always look forward to is they call it the vision speech.
Okay.
And so much like other large companies, he has several economists that study trends. And
Gary Keller of Keller Williams.
Yep.
For those that don't put two and two together there.
They study this all year long, and then at every one of these conferences, they present to the 10,000 agents that are there what they foresee and what has happened. And when you track, he's saying all of the same things we've been saying for months. When you track the inventory is going to be the issue. And it is the thing that is moving houses out of an affordability bracket that we don't want to see them move out of. If you look dollar for dollar how we built and sold houses in the past, it's not that huge of an increase when you adjust it for inflation. But when you tack on all the other costs of living and a not robust enough wage growth, there's a big concern that 1% in mortgage rates can cut out an unusually large slice of the potential buyer population because they won't be able to do the monthly payment.
Devil's advocate, if the 1% increase in mortgage rates cuts out a slice of the buying pie, will that eventually long-term stabilize this frenzied market?
The only equivalent answer I can give you is when you go to order your Porsche
Okay.
online,
Porsche, all right.
which very few people could afford,
Okay.
do you expect it's going to be cheaper because there's not as many buyers that can afford it?
It's great. That's a great response. It's a
And-
great response.
And the answer is generally no.
But I can potentially expect, that's a great response. I can expect potentially as a buyer to not have to waive some of these contingencies like no inspection or more money down like we're seeing today.
We are hopeful that the market will calm down. Don't confuse that with the market cooling off.
Big difference.
Nick, put
Very
that in
big
perspective, what
difference.
he's saying right there, Nikki.
Well, so when he's talking about calming down, it's kind of like what you were just hinting at of maybe it won't be quite as intense. But the reality is there's still going to be competition because we're still an area with that turnover. We're a transitional area. We're also an area in high demand. So that cooling off, I think sometimes, and even like words like, oh God, I hate to say it, but like I still hear people talking about a bubble, and I'm like, that's not a thing. It's not what this is. So that cooling off, sometimes people think that's going to happen, and maybe they're going to be able to get a deal. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is. The calming down is it not being quite as crazy intense, maybe, because it is, and it has been for what's a long time right now. In real estate and in market, in any industry really, to be like this. It's intense. And not only is it intense in most places, it is more intense here than it is in many other places.
Mike Hopkins watching of Ernst & Young over on LinkedIn. Twitter is coming in with some DMs and some messages for us on the show. YouTube as well. We will get to these. What did you say not kept you up at night, but your mind was preoccupied with some larger broker level topics when we were talking about the tax rate. Vanessa Parkhill of Earlysville, hello, and Oksana Alexandra, hello on one of our Facebook pages. What were those topics?
I think one of the big ways that the tax rate can impact people is, when you're qualifying for a loan, you've got to have the debt to income ratio.
Uh-huh.
So on the buyer side, it's the equivalent of a rate hike, because now the taxes as they're being predicted are just going to be higher. You have to factor that into the monthly payment to get a loan, and the $400 house now has an increase in monthly payment that is going to affect your ability to afford the $400 house. And so you might be buying the $350,000 house for the same monthly payment. And again, when we talk about cutting people out, it's mostly pushing people down the rungs to a place where there are so few cars available, or houses in this case, that there's just no option for them to buy.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nikki?
I think this comes back to the conversation of affordable housing, and that is a really big challenge, right? That is something that I think, at least in our community, I know it's a big topic, it's important, people are trying to address it. And yet I don't know that there's ever going to be enough done. I'm just really glad that I live in an area where we are working on it, where people really do care. People who the affordable housing challenge doesn't impact them directly care and want to be a part of change and making our community better for the people who live and work here.
Jay Gundy giving you guys some props of Long and Foster Real Estate over on LinkedIn. More stuff coming in on LinkedIn, on Twitter here. How about this one for QB and for Nikki? You guys started the show, and this is from Kelsey. You guys started the show by talking about that 190 to 225 price point with condos. Why do we not have more of them to make it much more accessible for either the quote house hack? She says, I think that's what Nikki said. That she's right, is house hack. Or the TLC elbow grease approach that both you guys were describing. That's a great question from Kelsey.
It's a great question.
What do you make of that one?
So I think, sorry, my brain just went to thinking how great she is, because I love her. And I went all squirrely
Hi,
ADHD.
Kelsey.
Yeah, hi, Kelsey. Thank you. You're the best. Why are there not more? I think this is coming down to some of these zoning issues we keep talking about. Or zoning conversations. I'm not sure if issue is the word I should say there, but that's really what it is.
Daniel McDougall, there will always be adjustments in the market that occur by area and certain price ranges. He leaves that comment right there. Thoughts on that 190 to 225 price point, why we're not seeing more of it, QB? And also Daniel's comment, there will always be adjustments in the market that occur by area and certain price ranges.
All real estate is local, so he's right. There are different areas that will experience different things from time to time. What we're seeing as the trend, though, is that there's not a huge opportunity for there to be a price adjustment or correction, you might call it, because there's just not enough houses to sell for that to happen. If you looked right now for active houses between 190,000 and 225,000, there are 93 in car on the MLS, and most of them are further out. They're not up close into where Charlottesville is. So there's two things that make this hard to do. One is land. If you look at what lots are selling for nowadays, that, before you have a stick of wood up to build a house, you're already over $225,000. And so I don't know how you would get another house or a house payment on there outside of some operation such as the land trust that would allow a purchase price that's not land plus. So you have to deal with the land. We're selling lots now, sometimes upwards of $400,000 for a third of an acre, depending on the location. Second thing you have to realize is that a lot of the prices and the costs that went into building houses, they shot up over COVID. We used to talk about lumber. So lumber went up like 10 times its price. And then we said, the price of lumber is coming back down. And it did. It just came down to only 4 times its price from before COVID. It never went back to baseline. You're still seeing that in a lot of the materials that it takes to build a house. And we didn't suddenly have more laborers appear. We don't have more skilled tradesmen than we had beforehand. And in many cases, we have less. All of this stuff goes into creating housing in this price point range. And if you look through the listings on Car, the biggest impact is the land that they're sitting on.
Good take right there. Ray Cadell, welcome to the program. More friends over at Long & Foster, hello, and welcome to the show. And agents, if you want to jump in with some perspective for the fabulous Quentin Beckham and Nikki Chambless, please put it in the feed. So why don't we I'm trying to take a different approach here. We know the inventory is pinched, okay?
Yes.
We know this, and we know this. Is there a potential positive that you guys see on the horizon? I guess what I was trying to do with the increased rates is potentially the stabilization of the market, because there could be maybe less buyers in the pool. Now, I want everyone to have a chance to own a home. I'm not trying to take it from that approach. I want everyone to have a chance to own a home. But having maybe less buyers in the pool means maybe it's more, and we know it's a seller's market, and it's a big-time seller's market, but maybe it can get a little bit more balanced for all of us. Maybe we can get a little longer run of inventory for all of us, because right now we don't have much. What is a potential positive that maybe you even heard at your Orlando conference that you can relay to everybody?
I think the potential positive, I'm short 1 cup of coffee today, and I can feel it as I'm trying to talk. That's going to be my next gift for your office. It's something that makes coffee.
Okay, thank you. We'll gladly take that one, but it's not going to be as cool as the one you would gift us.
Well, and it's never on. When I come here, it's never on.
That is correct.
It makes me so sad. I would visit you more if you had coffee. I think one of the big things that you're going to see that will really help in terms of buyers and people getting into houses is having all of the supply chain issues resolve.
Okay.
So let's set aside Ukraine and everything it's doing for a moment.
Because I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, let's just set it aside for a moment. Everybody believes that COVID is receding, and everybody believes that a lot of the after effect as COVID recedes will be the supply chain loosening up. Once the supply chain starts to flow again, a lot of the things that every household has to buy that is eating up their ability to purchase a home should start to come down. We are very hopeful that the inflation we're seeing right now is transitory, and that it is not a permanent effect of a new world, and that it's not going to require huge adjustments in interest rates to make a difference. I think one of the upsides about Ukraine is we probably won't see that 1% increase as quickly as we thought we would. I'll bet you there's just a little pause button being held down right now going, let's just see
He's
how
talking
this all
about the
goes.
Fed raising rates.
So I do think there's some positives. I do think you've had buyers find other solutions for housing, whether it's rentals or multi-generational, or maybe deciding, I don't need to downsize right now. I'm going to sit tight. So I do think you will see some of this calming where it's not the feeding frenzy it was. I don't know that will have a huge pressure on the current pricing. So maybe a light touch on it in particular houses that might be houses sellers are trying to sell that have some issues that they don't want to deal with. You might see some of those loosen up a bit, but we're still seeing 99 to 102% of list price on most sales.
Nikki Chambless.
Sorry, pause. That's not good. Anyway, so you're always going to get it straight for me here. So my brain went to other creative challenges, solutions with housing, and just trying to think of, as a buyer looking for other solutions, looking for that place that we keep talking about house hacking, but I'm also thinking that whole DIY elbow grease, and that's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's definitely my cup of coffee, right? And so I think that being open to putting a lot more in, to hitting the ground running, to working a little harder to get what you want is a really important thing. So that's, as you guys were talking and my gears were turning, I have a hard time not thinking back to some of those other conversations that we've been having and how there's still more to have on that.
You got more comments coming in. We'll get to Michael Pleckers here in a matter of moments. We'll get to Kevin Higgins here in a matter of moments. We'll get to Grayson here in a matter of moments. And
what's our general topic there?
Steven's comment from Richmond. This is an interesting one from one of your colleagues, Michael Plecker. Plecker shoots it straight.
Yes, he does.
I'm now telling my buyers that I'm unable to use my negotiation skill set to make sure they're paying a fair price for a home, but asking them this instead: what is your threshold for paying over the asking price you can live with in order to have a shot at getting this house? I was out with buyers all weekend in the city and in the county. The same agents and buyers were viewing the same homes as me and all competing for the same listings, all with escalation clauses right now.
Yes,
Placker, Yes
absolutely.
Realty Partners, Keller Williams right there.
Yep.
And here's the upside is if you have a specific area that you need to live in for your family and your work, and you're going to be there at least 5 years,
Yes.
your total financial picture is always better buying than it is renting. Everything that moves up housing prices moves up rental prices. So you can be really unhappy about your $440,000 price tag, $1,900 a month mortgage payment, or you can be really unhappy about your zero price tag, $1,900 a month rent payment. And at a minimum, you're getting some tax breaks from owning the home, and you've got something that you're getting money back out of rather than sitting and being subject to the market in a way that's going to hit you every year or 2 years based on your lease.
So let's throw this to you here, Quentin. Rents escalate 4% minimum every year, some higher, right? We got rents going up where a 30-year fixed is going to stay the same. Granted, your taxes are going to uptick, your HOA dues could uptick, your wear and tear could uptick, but you're freezing your overhead on your house. This is the essence of what you're saying right here.
Yeah. You know, you can't control, bananas always have to be bought again, but you can control the price for your housing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can freeze it at a point in time so that as we continue to move through spring, as we sell more houses, as interest rates go up, you're no longer subject to those changes. So long as you're going to be in the house 5 to 10 years, it will always be a better bet than what you're doing renting. I'm not even really a big fan of renting for 1 year if you've got a way out of it, because all of that money gets passed on to something else. That is in no way to say people that need to rent because they are short term, or maybe they've gone through some personal financial stuff because of COVID and so they can't qualify for a loan right now. I'm not selling any of those people down the river. If you have an option, even if it's 5, 10, 15, 20 grand higher than what you expected to pay, you're still better off.
Well said. There's a link on my comment section from Neil Williamson that you guys should check out.
Yeah.
It's for single family built for rent growth. Basically, and it's from the National Association of Home Builders. And they're discussing home builders are now building housing stock for rental purposes as opposed to selling purposes. So he wants us to cover this. Here's an interesting topic from Kevin Higgins, who we have dubbed the King of Greenwood. Why don't I throw this to you, Nikki, and then get your take, Quentin, on this as well, as you check out Neil's article, Quentin. But here's from Kevin Higgins. Nikki, we'll start with you.
All right.
Do you think homeowners should recalibrate their homeowners' insurance policies given the cost of lumber in case a fire should occur? It feels to me like we have a mass undershortage of coverage across home ownership in the market these days.
I think that any service you pay for, especially insurance, regardless of what you're insuring, is something that you should revisit regularly with the professional who is an expert in that. So I think you should definitely touch base with your insurance company. See if what you have covered, and whether it's homeowners insurance, your car insurance, your rent insurance, which you should have,
Good advice.
renter's insurance, that should be a regular thing on your radar to check in every so often, because you want to make sure you're covered. And oftentimes we're not. And you know what else you don't want? You don't want to pay for coverage you don't need. And that happens too.
Very good advice. Great answer right there, Nikki Chambless.
Thank you.
Very, very well done. Check out now the link in my comment section if you can from Neil. I'll throw it to
Let me do
Quentin.
that.
Single family built for rent growth in 2021. This is from the National Association of Home Builders. I'll read the first paragraph and then get out of the way for the expert QB and a sharp new sports jacket today and snazzy new shoes as well. Where are the shoes from?
Aldo.
Sharp shoes. The number of single-family built-for-rent construction starts increased almost 16% in 2021 after a record-breaking third quarter for production. Single-family built-for-rent market is a way to add inventory amid concerns over housing affordability and down payment requirements in the for-sale market, particularly during a period when a growing number of people want more space in a single-family structure. Single-family built for rent construction differs in terms of structural characteristics compared to other newly built single-family homes, particularly with respect to home size. Your thoughts on this topic here?
So interesting, if you scroll down, you'll see a graph.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that you all can't see this. If we were talking on this show a year ago, we were talking about the need for new home starts, to have subdivisions, construction, easier zoning, faster permit to shovel times, to get more single-family homes or multifamily homes out there for purchase. And we were saying that we needed that because when the market crashed, we started underbuilding, and we kept underbuilding for a long time, and we haven't caught up. If you go to that graph, you will see the same year the market crashed, single-family, built for rent housing starts went and tanked. And it has not been catching up, much in the same way single-family homes have not been catching up. And so, yes, we really do need these. I think what you're finding for apartments and large rental structures is they've been behind the curve as much as built-to-purchase homes have been behind the curve. They have some more options because they by nature have a higher density per acre, and so they can turn around more units for rental, which is a good thing, and we do need them. And it's an option you have to have for folks that can't afford the current housing market, but they are still behind the 8 ball to a similar degree that we are behind in our single-family, multifamily for purchase housing starts. Boy, that was a hard one to say.
And you got it out.
And you got it out. So that's a good take. So why don't we go down this road? Because multiple people are asking this. Neil, thank you for bringing this up on the show, because it's now opening up other topic avenues for us. How about the rent-to-own? The rent-to-own market. Is the rent-to-own market a way to potentially fix some of the
There's a lot of downsides.
folks that may be priced out?
There's a lot of downsides to it, but there's rent to own is one more way of saying owner financed. So there's a variety of owner financing schemes.
Yeah. Strategies.
Strategies that a purchaser and an owner can enter into together, and one of them is a rent to own. If it is a rent to own with
that one's a bit more precarious than some of the other ones.
It really is, because in rent to own, it's very easy for the purchaser's investment in that potential purchase to just evaporate and
Exactly.
disappear
Yes.
if their life changes and falls apart. Generally speaking, on a rent to own, you don't have a down payment, so you're paying extra for a specified period of time, just like on any other lease. That extra accumulates and becomes your down payment, and then the owner either finances it directly or provides a gift of equity that can be used by the lender in lieu of a down payment. It's very complex.
Good description.
And any sort of, if the renter's rent-to-own person's personal circumstances change, all of that extra money they put in is gone.
Yeah. And it can change in a number of ways.
And it can change in a number of
Lose their job, divorce, move.
And again,
You're not going to get that money back. Where the seller finance approach, you can sell the property that you are in, you pay off the person you struck the deal with, seller FIWay, and then you can walk with the equity. That's why the rent-to-own is a slipperier slope.
It is, and there's some, we actually do a fair amount of seller financing all the time, although you most often see it on
Commercial.
or houses that are being flipped. So a person might come into a house, let's suppose it's been in the family for a while, somebody passed away and they now need to unload the house, but the house is a disaster or hasn't been well cared for and has a lot of what we like to call deferred maintenance, which means it's a mess. You can have somebody come in that does a very short-term, 12 to 18-month seller-financed balloon mortgage, pays them a little bit more than what they would have gotten for it, for putting it on the market as is. They're out of state, so they don't want to deal with it. Then this person or business fixes up the house, updates it, sets it up, turns around and sells it on the open market during that same 18-month period for a higher price point that recovers all of their costs, pays off the original one, and makes them money going out the door so that they can do it again.
Yeah. That's more common.
That's the most common
Yeah.
seller
That's what I did
financing we
with
see.
this spot.
And I think too, since sellers have so many more options, there's some risk that the seller has doing seller financing. Since there's a lot of options right now, they're not needing to
They don't really need to take that
put
risk.
that option out on
Yeah.
the table quite as much, because they're going to be able to find somebody that can either stroke a check or get a mortgage, and they get cash and they get to walk away.
Quentin is dead on. FEMA only allows the portion above normal rent to go towards a down payment, not the entire rent being paid. This catches both landlords, buyers by surprise quite often. MacDougall, you're making us better today, Daniel. Thoughts on any of these topics there, Nikki Chambless?
So my firsthand experience very early on as a realtor, when I first got my license, I ran into quite a few of my buyers, and granted, it was before we were in the market we're in now, who really, really wanted to try to do some version of rent to own, right? They didn't have the credit score they needed to buy right now, and they also didn't want to not invest their money into something in their future. And every situation where I tried to help a family with this need, it ended up being a lose-lose for the buyer and the seller, and not a one of them went through. And then on the other side of that, I ran into many people throughout the last 5 years who ended up, after they got into a rent-to-own situation, without having any professional, real estate professional or lawyer representation in that situation at all, they ended up getting a really bad deal, and they ended up throwing money into an investment property or their property and not getting any of that back, not having that sale go through. They were worse off than when they started. It was not a good thing for them. So to me, the downside for both parties is just not worth it with that type of setup, right? Which is what tends to happen.
Well said. RTO has more questions. This is from Patrick McNeil in Litchburg. Do agents get commission on RTO deals that they put together?
It's a function of what their agreement is with those clients. All of the payment is negotiable for real estate agents, and all of it is determined before the contract is ratified. And so if you are working with a client to structure an RTO deal, you should have a buyer-broker agreement with them. And in that agreement, you would stipulate how you got paid and how much.
Very nice. Multiple people asking Quentin about Ukraine, Russia, and if he thinks it's going to affect the housing market. Leslie, thank you for putting it on our radar. I was certainly going to ask QB that topic. That's on everyone's mind right now. Ukraine, Russia.
And it's hard not to be. And I'll confess, I've been fascinated, because how often can you watch war going on YouTube?
I've been doing the same.
The media that is available that shows everything that's going on is kind of incredible. And I'll confess, it's impressive to see their current and former presidents standing in streets with Kevlar talking about defending their city and their country. That's kind of an impressive thing to witness.
Heavyweight boxing champions retired, wearing military fatigue, now fighting for their country. Women, have you seen the picture? It's amazing.
Kind of incredible.
It's
kind of
incredible.
incredible. And it's interesting, if you think about Ukraine as a country, size of Texas, about 44 million people. Half of everybody that lives there has never known the Soviet Union. They grew up in an independent, democratic Ukraine, and they have no concept of any sort of past history, unlike some of their older peers. And I can totally understand why they would want to stay that way. In terms of Ukraine affecting the war, or police action, or whatever we're calling it now, affecting the housing market would be indirect ways.
Gasoline.
Gasoline's the very first one.
Yep.
Russia is the largest exporter and producer of petroleum products and oil. Number 2 is Saudi Arabia. We are number 3. And so you can imagine that if we have to do economic sanctions that include cordoning off those sales,
we should go down that road.
Then our own prices are going to rise.
Okay, so I'm going to play for the sake of a talk show, okay? You guys are the experts. If fuel goes up, and a byproduct of this war is undoubtedly a gallon of gas is going to cost more. That's safe to say. Does it soften the real estate in the outer counties around epicenter of employment, Charlottesville and Albemarle County? We've seen in the past, as fuel goes up, real estate values in some of these outer counties have softened some because it costs more to drive to and from Charlottesville, Almar for work. So there's less inclination to purchase there.
I can get that because you have to drive until you can afford it. But that's always been predicated on the idea that since gas prices are going to go up, I'm going to do a financial trade-off where I pay more for this house that's closer, but it works out because I'm not buying gas.
Fair response. And work from home mentality now and
there's
options.
And there's work from home. When you run the list in the MLS for the houses we were talking about that are 225 and under, they're almost exclusively in Stanton, Afton, Waynesboro, areas that are either in the mountains, out towards Nelson, or over the mountain. And at some point, there's just not an option. We also have a ceiling limit to how high I would expect gas prices to go because they will reach a place where shale is now an economically feasible option again, and we would then be able to increase production in a way that capped that price increase. But in the interim, it's going to be very volatile, and you're going to have to wait and see. I think the last time I looked, it had gone up 20 cents in a week. I don't know. I drive an electric car, so I don't have to go to the pump. And you do have a lot more electric vehicles.
$3.50 essentially around here. My in-laws in Long Island are paying over $5.
I drove my electric car to Orlando.
Yeah, that is.
And it was very interesting, just the sheer number of travelers on 95 in electric vehicles. I tend to think of them as not being terribly common.
How do you track that? Could you just know the make and models? Or you can track them on
Because
an app?
we're all sitting at the charging stations together.
Got it. Okay.
When you see it plugged in charging,
Okay.
and it's a 15-minute wait while it's charging, you chit-chat and you talk about your cars and where are you from, and there was a fair number of people that were traveling from Virginia down to Orlando for one reason or another. And so it was kind of interesting, and I wonder if that will have some sort of effect on that market. Electric vehicles are flying off the shelves as they produce them.
Yeah, they can't produce them.
They can't produce them fast enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which gets us back to the chip shortage,
Yep.
which gets us back to the supply chain issue. And I think as you follow all of this down, everything comes down to a supply chain issue when we talk about the factors that are not directly housing related, but impact people's ability to afford the housing that's there.
Vanessa Parkhill, Queen of Earlysville, makes this comment, and she's enjoying what we're talking about. The United States has the capacity to address some of the gas supply issues, but we've chosen to cut our production. Good comment from the Queen of Earlysville, which is the case. That's certainly a politics topic right there.
I don't know that I know all the politics behind it. I think if you have a short-term gasoline availability problem, you would probably want to dip into the National Reserve rather than restart inefficient methods of producing gasoline. If you have a longer term, we cut off fuel from Russia, which impacts the EU, which changes how we purchase and sell fuel, then you will reach a point where shale can be turned on again, and we can produce gas through that method. That's my really uneducated, based on things I've read from people that are supposed to know more about it than I do.
So we've identified how gas could pinch or potentially soften the outer counties from a real estate standpoint. Here's the next question I have for you. A, how else could Ukraine, Russia, this war impact housing? Certainly it's making markets volatile, stock markets volatile. That has somewhat of a concerning effect, especially for those potential buyers at jumbo market and above, where we're considering our stock portfolio. Any other ways do you see this impacting the housing market, this war?
The biggest impacts yes. 67 to 68% of the U.S. economy is consumerism. And a lot of that is driven by consumer confidence. So every time somebody reads a headline that Putin has decided that he's going to move their nuclear defense troops to a high level of readiness, and every time that makes them anxious, it tends to stop them from going out to Aldo and buying really nice shoes, because it's just not the first thing on their mind. And all of these drivers that cycle around consumer confidence have a direct impact on how our economy runs. So yes, it will have its impact. It's not like houses are suddenly going to burn down because there's a war overseas, but it will affect our ability to have attention. It'll affect our ability to consume. It will certainly affect prices. As you see, things like gasoline is a big one. I tend to use that one as a marker because that impacts grocery prices and everything else that travels around the country. And there's also a fair idea that as these spread through the EU, we'll see some of the things that we're used to having manufactured overseas and then we purchase them maybe become a little more scarce, maybe become a little more expensive and harder to get to.
ABC has pulled Russian branded booze off of shelves in liquor stores across the Commonwealth. That's a good example right now. That broke yesterday.
Russian branded or so like
Russian
Russian owned.
Yeah,
Russian owned.
Yeah, so
Stoli's not.
is not, but it's often branded Russian because
But
Russians
PBR
love
is.
vodka. Is PBR Russian?
That's my understanding. I've heard that as well.
It is. So
It's owned by one of those conglomerates, is what you're saying.
no. Well, yes, and the primary investor is a Russian-born. We might refer to him as oligarch, and so I believe that he's one of the figures that has been highlighted for economic hardship to put pressure on the Russian government to stop this. And so if you're out there with your case of PBRs, just, know the R stands for Russian.
Is that true?
No.
Okay. You said it was
But
such
it's
a
owned by a
straight
Russian
face over
company.
there.
It's owned by a Russian company. And so, that's just, it's everywhere.
So a lot we're going to cover here, and Eugene Casper is the beer entrepreneur and chairman of Pabst Blue Ribbon. He was born in the Soviet Union to Jewish parents. He has told Russian interviewers he was born in a different country, and he and his family integrated to the United States as political refugees when he was 6 years old, and he became an American citizen shortly thereafter. So it's very
Nice.
interesting to see if can you think of any other Russian products or goods that
I have
could be
no
directly
idea.
tied to housing?
I have no idea. I mean, it's so complicated to figure out where things get built.
Yeah.
When you spend $1,000 on your iPhone, $940 leave the country.
That's terrible.
Only $60 stay here because manufacturing and science and technology and a lot of that stuff has moved overseas. And China's not even the one that gets the biggest slice. I believe it's Japan. China's just where they put it together, but Japan and Germany are where the parts are made.
This is from Grayson. It just further emphasizes our need to purchase, manufacture, create, and establish supply chains for goods and products here in the United States and stop our reliance on out-of-market or out-of-country manufacturers and providers. Amen to that. What else are you following here that we haven't seen? Lynn S. Morris Wilson giving you guys some props right now on the feed as well.
My only favorite thing is I've just had some really great experiences with local companies of late. And I was at Be Just over the weekend, that is across from Tavla, which is one of my favorite restaurants.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, they were super, super busy. They had some really great products. I bought a birthday present.
You went there for Rachel Burns' birthday.
That's true. I bought her a birthday present there. And they were the kindest people in the world. It was a very long line. They were trying to take care of everybody. And a lot of the stuff needed to be polished. And she's like, I really want to polish this for you. I'm like, well, we're meeting at like 5 o'clock. And she's like, well, I'm open till 6. Why don't you go have your drink? I'll get this all polished up and I'll package it up for you. And you just come back and I'll pass it off. Really?
That's amazing.
You'll
customer
remember
service.
me? She's like, I'll remember you, I promise. And sure enough, we
Great.
went, we had our first round of drinks. I walked back out there, picked it up. It was beautifully done, and it made a lovely birthday present. And so if you're out and about and you're looking for things to do, Be Just.
Be Just right there. Quentin Beckham. Well done today.
Shenanigans did a really good job when we were in our week of power outage. I don't know that you can live your whole life spending money on things that are only built and sold in small business local, but you can certainly make an effort to do more of it.
Carol Thorpe, giving you props right now. Quentin Beckham. Hello, Carol Thorpe.
Hi, Carol.
Nikki, she's the queen of Jack Jewett. Nikki Chambless, anything else you want to add to the show?
No, I'm like, oh, what is Be Just? I have to go by and check them out.
Belmont.
I missed that. Just been a little, How long have they been there, Quentin?
Relatively new.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
kind of new, but
Yeah.
they've been there a
Okay.
while.
Jeff Easter owns that building.
There's a
And she says, I believe Russia is a big lumber exporter. Carol Thorpe.
that could be true. I don't know. Haven't kept track of them much.
Jeff E., for those that are wondering, it's across from Tavola, the place that he's asking. Is across from Tavola, right close to Bell. I believe it's attached to Bell, next door to Bell.
Yes,
just-
that is
Okay.
correct.
So you can go and
If you're standing at Tavler's front door, just look across the street. You can't miss it.
so you could be the well-traveled cosmopolitan Quentin and have a cocktail at the Shishetti bar, and then walk across the street for a gift and bring it back before the second round is created and made and served to the birthday gal. Is that pretty much what happened? Is that what happened?
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah, and the tab stayed open, I believe.
Yes, it did.
Didn't have to close the tab.
We stayed
either?
for dinner. We stayed for dinner.
I know. You sat at the right angle of the bar.
Yes, we did. We
with
took
the
it over.
Mangionis.
That is also correct.
I'm not spying. I just noticed that was on your Facebook over there.
I assume I'm being watched most of the time.
That's a good. All of us should go about our lives that way in this digital age, with all of us with phones in our hands.
Yes, be kind, because somebody's recording you.
That's very well said. How about this, Nikki Chambless? You did well today.
Thank you. Thank you
Seriously.
for having me. And I'm looking forward to a whole March of Mondays with you.
March of
It's gonna
Mondays, I love it.
It's going to be fabulous.
Can you give us a snapshot at all? And this may put you on the spot. We don't have to.
Okay,
A snapshot for next Monday?
So next Monday, I'm going to have the lovely Katie Pearl, who you know and love, who we all know and love, as well as
Love you, Katie
Jason
Pearl.
Kirby.
Ooh.
So I'm really excited about this lineup. And I'm hoping for one of the upcoming Mondays to actually have a nonprofit guest. So that is related to trying to find housing for people who really need it. So I think I'm really looking forward to it. And I have a pool of other people that, whether they make it on the March lineup or one of the future Mondays, there's some amazing people out there.
And if anybody doesn't know Katie but wants to know her, there is a Today in Manana show that she was on.
She's amazing.
She's so
Her
great.
family history is astonishingly
Cubana.
exciting.
Yes.
And you've got to get her to talk about her grandmother, because she impersonates her grandmother. And her voice
She does.
changes and her whole demeanor changes as she's channeling her grandmother, and it is amazing to watch. I love it.
I'm tagging her. Katie, are you watching right now? She watches a lot of our content. I'm tagging her in case she is not, and saying you're getting props right now from Quentin Beckham and Nikki Chambless. Dude, I will tell you what, the Keller Williams firm is not only a firm of talented agents and brokers and folks that are trusted, but it's a true cast of characters. The Keller Williams firm.
We have fun, that's for sure.
And Katie Pearl fits that mold. We love her, as do these people over here.
Well-
What is the Keller Williams Christmas party like? And especially after you guys have a few adult beverages in you.
The best.
We had a really good Christmas party.
We have
Where was it?
and
great
there was
Christmas
no drama.
parties.
Well, this
Yeah.
last time it was at the Omni.
Oh, very nice.
But it's been
Because-
at various locations. And the locations are fabulous, right? They're great. But it's not about the location. It's about the group of people gathering.
So Omni, some beverages, some fun.
It's a very colorful group of people when you get us all together.
You guys, I
And I'm
missed
proud
that
to
part.
say that compared to 3 years ago, it's a much more diverse group.
Very
I'm
nice.
really happy about that, because we had started working on that goal 4 and 5 years ago.
That's one of CAR's focuses for 2022.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, DEI
Yes.
is a big
Yeah.
deal.
What's DEI stand for?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. A teaser for tomorrow's show, QB.
Oh gosh, I can't tease yet.
No? Okay.
No, because I'm waiting for the return phone call, and I'm afraid I'll jinx it.
Okay. Quentin Beckham
Don't do it.
with a return phone call on the docket for tomorrow. Very excited for that. Well done. Worked out.
Thank you. Yeah,
Right?
you did. I love it. I love being here.
Good.
Thanks.
Nikki Chambless, Quentin Beckham, Judah Wickhauer. I'm Jerry Miller. This is the Monday Market Monitor and Real Talk presented by Keller Williams Alliance, Allied Property Management, Closure Title and Settlement Company, and Sigora Solar. And I can't be any more straightforward than Allied Property Management, guys. Legitimately repping me and one of our properties. Suzanne Real is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Ally Property Management. Look them up and give them a call. Thank you for joining us. The I Love CVille show is up in 1 hour, actually about 59 minutes. Take care, everybody. Well done. And he's going to tell us
I'm
more.
interested how everybody's royalty